Namo Buddhaya, Deepji, Namo Buddhaya. All those who are joining, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. All those who are joining through the live stream, thank you so much for joining. We start the session now with 15 minutes guided Anapanasati breath awareness meditation. So make yourself comfortable, close your eyes, keep your spine straight, and bring your awareness on your breathing. Bring your awareness on your breathing, the gentle in and out awareness of the breathing. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. Just be aware of the in and out breathing. Full awareness on the breathing. Do not change the pattern of the breathing. Just be aware of how it is. If it's a long breath, know that it's a long breath. If it's a short breath, just know that it's a short breath. Only awareness, nothing else. If the mind gets distracted, bring it gently on the breathing. Be with this total determination that I will not let a single breath come into my body or leave my body without my conscious observation. Total determination. Any difficult sensations in the body or any difficult thoughts or memories, if they arise, gently bring yourself back to the breathing. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. In breath, out breath. Keep breathing. Keep your full awareness on your breathing. razor sharp awareness on the breathing. We don't let a single breath go by. Total awareness. Be like a watchman or a watchwoman of your body. We will not let a single breath come in or go out of the body without our conscious observation. Full and complete awareness on the breathing. Full determination to remain aware of the in and out breathing. Pleasant feelings may come, unpleasant feelings may come, body sensations may come. But as they come, and as we become aware of them, we return back gently to our breathing. We don't go in guilt or self pity or anything. We gently return back to our breathing. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. In breath, out breath. Full determination. Do not try to change the pattern of the breathing at all. Just awareness. We are not doing breath work. We are just becoming aware of breath. Breath as it comes in and breath as it goes out. Total awareness. If the mind got distracted or got lost in thoughts, do not go into guilt. This is the nature of our mind. Gently return back to the breathing and focus on the in and out breathing. If you note any difficult sensations in the body, just gently come back to the breathing. Let them be as it is and come back to the breathing. And be aware of the in and out of the breathing. Come back to the breathing. Be totally focused on being aware of the breathing. Any thoughts of the past, any memories, just know that they've arisen and come back to the breathing gently. Be kind to yourself and come back to the breathing. Every moment is a new moment, and every moment is a moment to come back into awareness. Total awareness of the breathing, not letting a single breath come into our body or go outside the body without our observation. Total awareness. And now we will close the meditation. We can take an intention that whatever peace or merit that we have generated from this meditation, may it go to all the beings who are suffering. May they be free from their suffering and may they find peace. We take a 1 minute break. Whenever you feel complete, you can open your eyes. So Thank you, Sneha ji. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, fine. So we start the book reading. Just a second. Let's see. I desperately need a. Sorry, just sorry. Just give me 1 minute. Had made a note. Desperately need a bookmark now. Sorry. Okay, fine. Yes, okay, fine. So let us start. This is page 309. Follow the Dhamma. This is the book we are referring to, Old Path, White Clouds by Thich Nhat Hanh, a very good book on Buddha's life in a story format. Okay, so we continue. There was this discussion between Buddha intervening in that conflict between the monks, and then he came across the three monks who were living together with so much harmony and everything. Um, Uh, Fine. So, continuing from there, Thai says that at that moment, a number of lay patrons led by Anantapitaka arrived at the Buddha's hut. They said, Lord, the bhikkhus from Kosambi have arrived. How should we receive them? So, these all bhikkhus who are fighting, they had finally arrived at a kind of a conciliation, kind of, they have reconciled. So, they've arrived. So, they were asking that, to the Buddha, that how we should receive them. Should we give both sides food offerings? The Buddha smiled. Offer food to both sides. Express your support of the sangha. Offer your praise when any of them say things in accordance with the dhamma. Ananda returned and announced to Sariputta that the bhikkhus from Kosambi were already at the monastery gates. Sariputta turned to the Buddha and asked, Shall we let them enter now? Buddha said, Open the gates and welcome them. Sariputta said, I will arrange places for them all to sleep. Buddha said, let the two sides dwell in separate locations for the time being. We may have, so Sariputta said, we may have difficulty finding adequate places for everyone to sleep. Buddha said, we can endure crowded conditions for now, but don't make any of the elders sleep outdoors. Distribute food and medicine equally to all. Sariputta issued orders for the gates to be opened. The Kosambi bhikkhus were given places to sleep and provided with basic necessities. The following morning, the newly arrived bhikkhus were told to go out begging as usual, because they were totally dependent on the people, on the lay people. Sariputta divided them into groups and sent them to different locales as the Buddha had counseled. That evening, the bhikkhus asked Sariputta to arrange meeting with the Buddha in order for them to make a confession. Sariputta said, making a confession to the Buddha is not the most important thing. You must first achieve true reconciliation. Only if reconciliation has taken place will the ceremony of confession have meaning. How true is that? That the first the confession has to be true between both parties. The reconciliation has to be true. That night, the Sutra master, responsible for starting the conflict by his refusal to be corrected, went to the precept master. He joined his palms and bowed. Then he knelt in front of the precept master and said, Venerable, I accepted that I violated a precept. It was proper for you to correct me. I am ready to make confession before the Sangha. The Sutra master knew that the only way to resolve the conflict was to swallow his pride. The precept master responded by kneeling before the Sutra master and saying, I confess that I too lacked humility and tact. Please accept my sincere apologies. Late that night, a confession ceremony was held for the Sutra master. Everyone gave a sigh of relief, right? That the all the conflict has ended, especially the Kosambi bhikkhus who had remained impartial throughout the conflict. It was after midnight when Sariputta informed the Buddha that the reconciliation had finally taken place. The Buddha nodded silently. The conflict was ended, but he knew that it would take time for all the wounds to heal, right? Because of the all the wrong things that were said by both parties to each other, the wounds would take time, but at least some progress was made. So this was kind of a chapter on that conflict that happened. We come to chapter 48, covering mud with straw. Now, Venerable Moggallana is one of the senior disciples, suggested a meeting take place between Buddha's senior disciples at Jetavana. Buddha was living at Jetavana monastery at that time, and the principal instigators of the Kosambi conflict. Goal of the meeting was to learn from the experience in order to come up with ways to prevent such conflicts from taking place again. Venerable Mahakassapa presided over the meeting. To begin the meeting, Mahakassapa asked Anuruddha to repeat the 6 principles of harmonious living that the Buddha had expounded during his stay at the eastern bamboo forest. After hearing Anuruddha explain the 6 principles, Moggallana suggested that bhikkhus and bhikkhunis in all monastic centers be asked to memorize them. After 4 days of discussion, the bhikkhus in the meeting formulated 7 practices of reconciliation to be used to settle disputes within the sangha. They named these 7 methods Saptadhikarana Samatha. Okay, the first practice is Samukha Vinaya or face to face sitting. According to this practice, the dispute must be stated before the entire convocation of the bhikkhus with both sides of the conflict present. This is to avoid private conversations about the conflict which inevitably influence people against one side or the other, creating further discord and tension. Second practice is Smriti Vinaya or remembrance. In this, in this, in the convocation, both parties involved try to remember from the beginning everything that led up to the conflict. Details should be presented with as much clarity as possible. Witnesses and evidence should be provided, if any available. The community listens quietly and patiently to both sides in order to obtain adequate information to examine the dispute. The third practice is Amudha Vinaya or non-stubbornness. The monks in question are expected to resolve the conflict. The community expects both parties to demonstrate their willingness to reach a reconciliation. Stubbornness is considered negative and counterproductive. In case a party claims he violated a precept because of ignorance or an unsettled state of mind without actually intending to violate it, the community should take that into account in order to find a solution that is agreeable to both sides. The fourth practice is Tatsva Vinaya or voluntary confession. Each party is encouraged to admit his own transgressions and shortcomings without having to be prodded by the other party or the community. The community should also allow each party ample time to confess his own feelings, no matter how minor they may seem. Admitting one's own faults begins a process of reconciliation and encourages the other party to do likewise. This leads to the possibility of a full reconciliation. The fifth practice is Pratijna Kara Vinaya. It's all the Pali words, or accepting the verdict. When the verdict is reached, it will be read aloud 3 times. If no one in the community voices disagreement with it, it is considered final. Neither party in dispute has the right to challenge the verdict. They have agreed to place their trust in the community's decision and carry out whatever verdict the community reaches. The sixth practice is Yad Bhuya Sikya Vinaya, or decision by consensus. After hearing both sides and being assured of the wholehearted efforts by both sides to reach a settlement, the community reaches a verdict by consensus. Seventh practice is Trisnakara Vinaya, or covering mud with straw. During the convocation, a venerable elder monk is appointed to represent each side of the conflict. These are high monks who are deeply respected and listened to by others in the Sangha. They sit and listen intently, saying little, but when they do speak, their words carry special weight. Their words have the capacity to soothe and heal wounds, to call forth reconciliation and forgiveness. Just as straw covers mud, enabling someone to cross it without dirtying his clothes. Thanks to the presence of these elder bhikkhus, the disputing parties find it easier to release petty concerns. Bitterness is eased, and the community is able to reach a verdict agreeable to both sides. The Buddha's senior disciples submitted the 7 practices of reconciliation for his approval. He praised their work and agreed that the practices should become part of the formal precepts. The Buddha remained in Jetavana for 6 months before returning to Rajagaha. He stopped to visit the Bodhi tree on his way and entered Uruvela to visit Swasti's family. Swasti was 21 years old. Buddha had returned to fulfill his promise to welcome Swasti into the Sangha when he was old enough. Swasti was ordained and fast became Rahula's close friend. So this was Swasti who was there at that time when Buddha was practicing alone, and finally Buddha reached him and ordained him. We come to chapter 49, which is Earth's Lessons. Swasti listened with great intent to all that Asaji and Ananda recounted about Buddha's effort to spread the Dhamma. Bhikkhuni Gautama and Rahula listened intently too. Ananda's memory was truly phenomenal, and it is because of Ananda's memory that most of the discourses that are there available, there he was part of that community of monks who was able to recite everything because his memory was very, very sharp. He could remember each and every word of the Buddha. He filled in many details that Asaji forgot to mention. Swasti was grateful to both bhikkhus and Bhikkhuni Gautami and novice Rahula. Thanks to them, he learned much about the Buddha's life he could never have learned otherwise. Swasti hoped that he would always be able to live close by the Buddha in order to witness his life and receive his teachings directly. Thanks to Sujata, even though Swasti was an untouchable buffalo boy, he had learned the basics of a young man's education. But his lessons with her had ended several years ago when she left Uruvilla to marry a man in the village of Nadika. Swasti knew that he could learn a great deal from Rahula. He found that Rahula's bearing full of gentle dignity. Not only was Rahula from a noble caste, but he had spent the past 8 years living in the serene and concentrated atmosphere of the Sangha. Compared to Rahula, so it's all about not about what who we are. It's all about the environment that we are in that determines who we are, right? So even the criminal has the seeds of enlightenment, but somewhere he has not got that kind of an environment. So here it's talking about Rahula being in that environment. Compared to Rahula, Swasti felt rough and awkward, but his feelings caused him to devote great efforts to his practice. Sariputta asked Rahula to show Swasti basic practices such as putting on the robe, holding the begging bowl, walking, standing, lying down, sitting, eating, washing, listening to Dhamma talks, all in mindfulness. A bhikkhu memorized and paid diligent attention to 45 practices. A bhikkhu memorized and paid diligent attention to 45 practices, all of which helped to deepen his focus and serenity. So uh, even the minute things as putting your shoes, right? There's this thing, or we will come to it later. In principle, Rahul was still only a novice, a samanera. He had to wait until he was 20 years old to take full vows. A samanera had 10 precepts. Do not kill, do not steal, do not engage in sexual relations, because anyways he's a novice monk. Do not speak falsehoods, do not drink alcohol, do not wear jewelry, flowers or perfume, do not sit or lie down on any wide, high or fancy bed, do not participate in secular dancing and singing parties, do not handle money, do not eat past the noon hour. The 45 practices were followed by ordained bhikkhus. But Rahula was expected to study and observe them in preparation for his full vows. A bhikkhu observed 120 precepts, which included the 45 precepts. Rahula told Swasti that additional precepts would probably be added and that he had heard they might well number 200 or more and in time. Rahula explained to Swasti that in the first year of the Sangha, there were no precepts. Ordination was simple. A person had only to kneel at the feet of the Buddha or another bhikkhu and recite the three refuges 3 times. It became necessary to create and enforce the precepts as the Sangha grew, because in so large a community, there were bhikkhus who needed rules and regulations in order to better discipline themselves. Right? So earlier there were no kind of precepts and all these things. But as the community kind of increased, there were also some bhikkhus who were, You had to put rules on them. They were not very easy to admonish. Right? Um, Rahula told Swasti that the first person to violate the spirit of the Sangha was a bhikkhu named Sudina. It was because of Sudina that the Buddha created the first precepts. Before he was ordained, Sudina was married and lived in the village Kalanda on the outskirts of Vesali. When he heard the Buddha teach, he asked to be ordained. Shortly after that, he had a chance to return to Kalanda. His family invited him for a meal in their home and he consented. His family implored him to return to secular life, that means the lay life, and help run the family business. He refused. His parents complained because Sudina was their only child and they had no one else to inherit the business. They feared that the family wealth would fall into someone else's hand. Seeing Sudina's determination to remain a bhikkhu, his mother suggested that the least he could do was to leave a child as a heir. Persuaded by his mother's pleas and without precepts to guide him, he agreed to meet with his former wife in Mahavana forest. His wife conceived and gave birth to a boy they named Bijaka, which means seed. Sudina's friends taunted him by calling him Seed's father. The reputation of the Sangha was tarnished. The Buddha called the bhikkhus together and chastised Sudina, kind of scolded Sudina. So because of this incident, formal precepts were instituted. It was decided that whenever a bhikkhu violated the spirit of the way of enlightenment and liberation, a convocation would be called and a new precept or added. The precepts were called Patimukha. Four precepts were considered cardinal. The violation of any one of these four resulted in being expelled from the community. All the other precepts could be forgiven by making confessions. The four cardinal precepts were: do not engage in sexual relations, do not steal, do not kill, and do not claim to have attained insight that you have not actually attained. This is fourth one is very important for the bhikkhus, because as a bhikkhu there is this tendency to glorify about your attainments and everything in the sangha. But if you have not attained a particular level, you should not claim to have attained it. So that was like a big one of the precepts that could lead you to expelling from the sangha. These four precepts were called parajika. Rahul also told Swasti that the Buddha had never treated him with special favors, even though his father dearly loved him. He recalled how, at the age of 11, he told a fib to Sariputta because he was afraid of being scolded for running off and playing when he had other duties. He ended up having to tell four fibs in a row for the fear that Sariputta would uncover the truth. But as is almost always the case, the truth came out. The Buddha used this occasion to teach Rahula how important it was always to tell the truth. And this is what Buddha said. There's this discourse where Buddha said, this is a pot, and he emptied half of the water on the pot. And he said, that is how your merits reduce as you. So it's like a long discourse. And Buddha explained through that analogy to Rahula that never ever lie, even for the even if you if it even if it's a joke, or even if you face death, right? At that time, Sariputta and Rahula dwelled in Ambathika Park, not far from Bamboo Forest, where the Buddha was staying. So we'll close it after this. Right. This is the last para, and we'll close this after this, right? At that time, Sariputta and Rahula dwelled in Ambathika Park, not far from Bamboo Forest, where the Buddha was staying. One day, the Buddha paid them a visit. Rahula set out a chair for him and brought him a basin of water to wash his hands and feet. When the Buddha was finished washing, he poured out. Okay, so this is the discourse that is coming out. Okay, he poured out most of the water in the basin. Now, it was not the actually basin, he looked at Rahul and asked, it's basically a pot that was given in the discourses mentioned. It's a pot. Rahul, is there a little or lot of water in the basin? Rahul answered, so we'll complete this one. Rahul answered, there is very little left. The Buddha answered, you should know, Rahul, that the person who does not tell the truth has as little integrity left as the water in this basin. Rahula was silent. The Buddha poured out the remaining water and asked his son, Rahula, do you see how I have emptied all the water out? Yes, I see. Those who continue to tell untruths lose all the integrity just as this basin has lost all the water. The Buddha turned the basin upside down and asked Rahula, "Do you see how this basin is turned upside down?" "Yes, I see. If we don't practice correct speech, our integrity is turned upside down just like this basin. Don't tell fibs. Fibs is lies. Even in jest. That means even don't lie even for a joke. Rahula, do you know why one uses a mirror?" "Yes, a mirror is used to look at one's reflection." "Just so, Rahula, regard your own actions, thoughts, and words just as this person looks into the mirror." Rahula's story made Swasti more deeply aware of the importance of right speech. He could recall times he had fibbed to his parents and even once to Sujata. He was thankful he never lied to the Buddha. Actually, it seemed impossible to lie to the Buddha. Even if someone did, the Buddha would surely be able to tell because he had this clear audience and clairvoyance capacities. Swasti thought to himself, "I will resolve always to speak the truth to everyone I meet, even the smallest child. This will be the way I can show my gratitude to the Buddha for all he had done for me. I will observe the precepts diligently." So this is page 318. We will continue from here tomorrow. So, yes, let us take a moment to reflect the learning from this discussion, from this reading. Anyone wants to share anything from today's reading or generally or anything, feel free to share. Feel free to share, unmute, or share in chat.
Hi,
Yes.
namaste, sir.
Namo Buddhaya.
Namabuddhai.
Namo Buddhaya.
Fantastic session, sir.
Okay, okay.
So
Thank
I
you.
always have some more other questions, so sorry.
Okay, okay. No problem.
So actually, see, my question is,
Yes.
in one side, we are trying to learn Buddha's teaching,
Yeah,
in this Kali Yoga where we are not surrounded with not so good people. We are just,
yeah.
trying to walk on a good path. Somehow, fighting. This fight is not easy.
Yes.
So my question is, if we defend ourselves, sometimes, when we lose our patience, if we try to defend ourselves, if we set boundaries, if we sometimes, scream or shout when we literally lose our patience. So will we attract bad karmas, like according to Buddha's teaching? Because
Yeah.
being patient all the time, it is like
It's not possible. Yeah,
very,
yeah.
yes,
Very
yes,
true.
yes.
We are on.
Yeah,
That's why
but
we are
our
not the
intention
Buddha.
is good.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yes, yes.
yes. That is my question, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. See, if you want exactly an answer, there is this actual quote that Buddha said that if someone is like cutting your limbs through a saw, right? There is a saw which someone is cutting both limbs of yours,
Mhm.
and even then you should not harbor any bad thoughts about that person.
My
If you
God,
even,
yes,
so I'm just, this is what the teaching is.
yes,
If
yes.
you, even if you are harboring any negative thoughts towards that person, then you are not following my teaching. Now this is like the
Mm-hmm.
highest, right? So
Correct.
but this is what Buddhists said to mendicants, monks, because monks are someone, people who were like totally dedicated to the practice. So Buddha wanted them to be too because their level should be so up so that they can achieve nibbana in this life itself. But we are lay people. So my only understanding, my only thing is, yes, uh, screaming, shouting, all these things that arise, definitely any intentional thing that arises, anything which we do out of our own volition, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our own intent uh, binds us, creates suffering for us. And that's why we have to try as much to control our speech, control our thoughts, control actions through our body, right? Even in the worst of situations. And that we can only try. That's the practice that we have. Is that situations will always be bad, situations will never be good, but that is what our effort has to be, is to keep becoming mindful of our thoughts and our speech. We cannot control what others do, but we can control over what we do. At the same time, we don't have to be like a pushover, sound like a pushover, right? So that thing has to be done. I agree with you, being in a lay life and with all the challenges, it is not like 100% we will be able to comply with these precepts and everything. But if I have been complying like 10, 20%, or 25%, with more and more awareness, I can increase my compliance level to like 50% in this life.
Yes.
That's
Correct,
what
sir.
we have to aim for. We are not
Okay.
aiming for perfect people. But why Buddha gave these precepts is that, and all the precepts, the main precepts like do not kill, do not steal, do not lie, do not use harsh speech, is because they are responsible for creating our suffering. These are the main things. So as much as we can, there is always some possibility we can find, instead of reacting harshly, we can a bit, like even 10%, we can control ourselves. But then the thing is that at that moment when the heat is there, in the heat of the moment, how to control yourself, that is where all the practice, all what we discuss, all what we learn, and all what we
Yeah.
meditate, and all everything is tested at that time.
Yes.
So very important thing that I will say is that that I always say is being kind to ourselves, is we have to learn that, because the
Yes. Yes.
path is
Yes.
easy. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much,
Most
sir.
welcome. Most welcome. Thank you for asking this, and le- thank you for having this
Because
discussion.
so most of the time we try, but 10 to like 20% maybe.
Yes.
Sometimes we like go out, like things goes out of hands.
Yes.
So that was my kind of guilt conscious. I thought to check with you, because I
Yes.
usually don't react like that, but sometimes
Yes.
things happens.
And
That's the
then
reason.
mind goes back to that particular incident. So then our practice in the now is to bring our mind back to the now. Whatever
Hmm.
happened, happened. I will not go back. I will remain in this moment. And then we have to have some easy techniques at our disposal, right? Like mindfulness of a body, or
Yes, yes.
uh, uh,
The breathing
attention
techniques,
to our
what you have
breath.
taught.
Breath.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Correct, sir. Thank you so much,
Most
sir. Thank
welcome.
you.
Most
Thank you.
welcome. Most welcome. Thank you. Anything else? Anyone wants to share anything? How your meditations are going, or how your practice is going? Okay, so we will close. Just a bit of update, as I have put in the group, is that Monday will be the kind of it's the session where I want to do this one session every week, where anyone is a beginner, how to get started on the path. So that will be the Monday session. So our this Sangha meetings, this format that we do, that will be Tuesday to Friday, and right, Tuesday to Friday, the Zoom link that is there, we will join it through that, and that is the thing. And this thing, guided meditation that I'm doing, basically the intention is to, for anyone who is beginner, it's more easy to do this kind of a meditation, which is more, guided meditation is more appropriate here. Vipassana guided is a bit difficult, because I don't know what sensations are running in your body. So I cannot predict that. But the breath awareness thing is very kind of easy, and it itself is very, very powerful. There is a sutra MN 118, uh, middle discourses 118, which is dedicated to Buddha's discourse on the mindfulness of breathing, where Buddha has talked about 16 ways to you can be mindful of your breathing and of your body, and like 16 different ways. But only one way, if you put that is itself it. Only one way that you. So there are in total 40 objects of meditation, but even the breath can, take us to enlightenment. Like, right? It's just that we have to make it deep, 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 and that's it. So breath is very, very powerful. Only the awareness of the breath. And so we close for today, and see you then tomorrow. Take care. Good night. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Thank you so much.